The planet of Virith was a world unlike any other, a place where towering metal spires touched the sky and cities sprawled across landscapes that seemed to hum with energy. It was a place ruled by alien beings from many different worlds, each with their own unique technology, strength, and desires. For centuries, the aliens of Virith had maintained their dominance over the galaxy, taking what they wanted, conquering what they could, and never once fearing anyone or anything. But now something strange was happening. The Virithian Empire had just received a visitor, and this visitor was something they had never encountered before. A human child. Isla was small, no more than 7 years old, with bright eyes and a curious smile that seemed out of place in such a cold, mechanical world. She had come to Virith not as a soldier or diplomat, but as part of a strange exchange program between Earth and the Virithians. She was the first human to step foot on the planet, chosen by Earth's leaders as a sign of peace between their world and the alien empire. At first, the aliens didn't know what to make of her. They had seen humans before, though from a distance. They knew humanity was resourceful and capable, but they also thought of humans as fragile, weak creatures who were no match for the vast powers of the galaxy. They were convinced that such a small, innocent-looking human could never pose a threat. The Virithian leaders saw Isla's arrival as a symbol, something to showcase before their people. The alien species who watched from their towering citadels believed that the Earth people were simply too soft to understand the harsh realities of the universe. They thought that this human child in her innocence would make for easy negotiations. They expected her to be intimidated by their power, to cower under the weight of their technological superiority. But when Isla stepped off the transport ship, something entirely unexpected happened. Instead of showing fear or awe, the child looked around with wide, fascinated eyes, taking in the alien landscape as if it were just another park on Earth. There were no signs of fear. She didn't flinch when massive alien creatures walked by, their footsteps shaking the ground beneath her. She simply smiled, as though the world was a place of wonder, not terror. A group of Virithian soldiers had gathered to greet her, their faces stoic, their uniforms sleek and deadly. They had been trained to deal with threats, to intimidate and to dominate. They were not used to seeing a child who didn't bow before their might. They expected her to tremble or cry, but she didn't. She only looked up at them with bright curiosity. A young officer named Jorok, who was tasked with escorting Isla through the city, watched her with growing confusion. He had expected to have to guide her through the complex world of Virith, teaching her its rules and its ways. Instead, he found himself staring at her, bewildered. She wasn't afraid of anything. Her confidence was almost infectious, like a spark that caught him off guard. "Do you like our city?" Jorok asked, his voice carrying a mix of amusement and curiosity. "It is the pride of Virith." Isla looked up at the towering spires, her eyes wide. "It's beautiful," she said, grinning. "It's so big, like a giant puzzle. I want to see all of it." The soldiers around Jorok shared glances. Isla wasn't the kind of human they expected, and she certainly wasn't acting like the fragile creature they had imagined. They could see now that this child, though small, was not like the others. She wasn't intimidated by them, and she was showing a kind of bravery that they could not understand. Jorok led her to the grandest part of the city, where the tallest buildings touched the clouds, and where the most advanced technologies were housed. The ground vibrated with the hum of energy running through the city, and Isla marveled at the sights around her. The streets were filled with aliens from all walks of life, some with wings, others with tentacles, and a few with translucent skin that glowed in the dark. And yet, it was not the streets, the towers, or the alien species that captured Isla's attention. It was something else entirely. Something the Virithians had kept hidden from everyone for centuries. It was the massive, ancient structure that lay at the heart of the city. To the Virithians, it was just another piece of their empire's history, a forgotten relic from the past. To Isla, it was a mystery that she felt strangely drawn to. She could feel it in her chest, a pull, a sense that something in this place was important, something she needed to find. As Jorok continued to lead Isla through the city, she couldn't shake the feeling. It wasn't just curiosity. It was a deep, almost instinctual knowledge that there was something powerful nearby. She glanced up at Jorok. "What's that building?" she asked, pointing toward the distant structure. Jorok hesitated for a moment before responding. "It's nothing you need to concern yourself with," he said. "It's an old part of our city, an old building long abandoned," but Isla's eyes stayed fixed on it. There was something in the way the building loomed in the distance that called to her, something that made her heart race. For the first time, the smile faded from her face. She felt an overwhelming urge to go toward it, to discover its secrets. Without saying a word, she pulled away from Yorok and began walking in that direction. Jorok called after her, but Isla didn't stop. She was drawn forward as if something was guiding her every step. The more she walked, the more the world around her seemed to blur. It was as though the planet itself was trying to speak to her, to warn her or maybe even welcome her. The Varethian soldiers who had been following them began to grow nervous. They watched as Isla moved toward the structure with purpose, a child who seemed to know something they did not. Jorok tried to catch up, but he was too late. Isla had already reached the entrance. The massive doors, adorned with strange symbols and glowing with an eerie light, opened slowly as though they had been waiting for her. And inside, Isla found herself face to face with the most incredible sight she had ever seen. In the heart of the building, hidden beneath layers of stone and technology, was a creature that the Varethians had kept hidden for centuries. The last dragon of the old universe. The dragon's eyes glowed with ancient power, and its massive form was coiled in a deep sleep, waiting for the one who would awaken it. The moment Isla stepped inside, the creature stirred. The massive doors of the ancient building closed slowly behind Isla with a deep, echoing thud. She stood in the darkness, the air thick with a strange energy that seemed to hum beneath her skin. The walls around her were covered in glowing symbols, ancient and mysterious, their meanings lost to time. As Isla's eyes adjusted to the dim light, she could feel something, a presence, a pull that made her heart beat faster. In the center of the room lay the dragon. Its enormous body was coiled in an almost perfect circle, its scales dark and shining like midnight. A faint glow came from its eyes, which were closed as though it were in a deep, peaceful sleep. The creature was beautiful, powerful beyond measure, but Isla didn't feel afraid. Instead, she felt calm, as though she belonged there in this room with the sleeping giant. Her footsteps were soft against the stone floor as she approached the dragon. She couldn't explain it, but there was something about the creature that felt familiar. The more she moved closer, the more she could sense the raw power that lay dormant inside the beast. It was the kind of power that could shake worlds, and yet it was still quiet, waiting. Isla stopped just a few feet from the dragon's massive head. The air around her seemed to shimmer with energy, and for a moment everything felt still. The dragon's eyes suddenly flickered open. They were glowing, not with anger or fear, but with an ancient, knowing light. Isla didn't flinch. She didn't even step back. She simply stared into the dragon's eyes, feeling a strange connection forming between them. It was as if the dragon could see into her very soul, understanding her in ways no one ever had before. "Who are you?" The dragon's voice echoed inside Isla's mind. It was not a sound she heard with her ears, but one she felt deep inside her chest. It was ancient, powerful, and yet kind. Isla didn't speak at first. She was stunned, amazed by the feeling that the dragon was not just a creature of destruction, but of something much greater. She could feel the dragon's centuries of wisdom, its deep connection to the universe, and yet there was no malice in it, just an endless well of knowledge. "I'm Isla," she whispered, her voice trembling, though not from fear. "I'm from Earth. I didn't mean to wake you." The dragon's great head tilted slightly, as if studying her with a curious gaze. "You did not wake me, little one," the dragon replied, its voice soothing and warm. "I have been waiting for the one who could release me from my chains." Isla blinked, confused. "Your chains?" she asked, glancing around the room. She didn't see anything that looked like chains. The dragon appeared to be at rest, peaceful, with no visible bonds holding it in place. The dragon let out a low rumble, a sound that felt like a distant thunderstorm, rolling through the air. "Not chains of iron, but of power. I was bound by those who feared me, by those who did not understand what I am." The dragon's glowing eyes darkened slightly. "I was once a protector of the old universe, an ancient guardian of balance. But in time the world became corrupt, and I was locked away, forgotten by all." Isla took a step closer, her heart pounding. She didn't know why, but she felt this incredible need to help. The dragon's sorrow stirred something deep inside her, something she didn't fully understand. "You were a protector," Isla asked softly. A guardian, but what happened to the old universe? Why are you here? The dragon's eyes softened and its great head lowered slightly, as if it were sharing a secret with her. The old universe was a place of harmony where all things had their place. But greed and hunger for power caused it to fall apart. Wars destroyed the stars and the balance was shattered. In my attempt to protect what remained, I was imprisoned by those who thought they could control me. Isla's mind raced with the dragon's words. The idea of an entire universe falling apart because of greed was something she could barely comprehend. But she understood the pain in the dragon's voice. It was like the dragon was speaking of a lost world, one that had been destroyed by its own people. I was placed here, on this world, far from the others, bound in this prison, a prison of time and space to prevent me from ever reaching my full power again. But now, the dragon's eyes flickered again, a spark of hope. You have come. You with the pure heart have unlocked the door to my freedom. Isla shook her head slowly. I didn't do anything. I don't know how to help you. I'm just a kid. The dragon let out a soft, rumbling laugh, the sound deep and comforting. Do not be so quick to underestimate yourself, little one. You have the heart of a protector, the courage of a warrior. It is your pure heart that called to me, that broke the chains I had endured for eons. Isla's eyes widened. Could it be true? Could the dragon actually be talking to her like she was something special? She was just a child, a girl from a small planet far away in the universe. How could she possibly have the power to free such an ancient, powerful creature? Before she could respond, Jorok and several other Varithian soldiers burst into the room. They froze when they saw the dragon's eyes glowing, and their hands instinctively reached for their weapons. Jorok's voice was a sharp command as he stepped forward. Isla, what are you doing here? He demanded. This is dangerous. You need to leave now. But Isla stood her ground. She didn't feel afraid anymore. The dragon had trusted her and she wasn't about to turn her back on it now. The dragon's voice boomed inside her mind, louder than before, shaking the very walls of the chamber. Do not fear them, child. I will not harm you. I will not harm any who are pure of heart. Jorok and the soldiers froze. They could feel the power in the air, thick and heavy like the stillness before a storm. The dragon was not just an ancient beast, it was something more, something far beyond their understanding. They had underestimated the power of the human child standing before them. The dragon looked at Isla one last time, its eyes filled with gratitude and something else, something that felt like a promise. You have awakened me, little one, it said, and for that I owe you everything. The dragon then lifted its massive head and the room began to tremble once more. The ground beneath Isla's feet began to tremble gently at first, like the quiet rumble of distant thunder. Then it grew louder, stronger, until it felt as if the entire world was shaking. The dragon's massive body stirred, its glowing eyes flickering with ancient power. Isla took a step back, but she didn't feel fear. Instead, she felt the pulse of the dragon's awakening fill the air around her, like an electric current running through the room. The Varithian soldiers stood frozen, their weapons lowered, their faces pale. Jorok's eyes darted nervously from Isla to the dragon. The creature's enormous form was still coiled, but it was no longer at rest. It was waking up and the whole room seemed to be responding to its power. Isla, get away from it. Jorok shouted, his voice trembling. You have to leave.
This isn't safe.
But Isla didn't move. She couldn't. It was as though the dragon's presence had rooted her to the spot. She could feel the warmth of its energy, the raw strength that radiated from it like the heat of a star. It was impossible to look away. The dragon's eyes were locked onto hers, and in that moment they seemed to be speaking to each other without words. The dragon's voice filled Isla's mind again, this time more powerful, more insistent. It is time. The chains are breaking. Isla felt a strange rush, as though the dragon's awakening was also awakening something deep inside her. She didn't understand it, but she felt connected to the dragon in a way that was beyond words. It was as if they shared the same heartbeat, the same pulse. Without warning, the dragon lifted its massive head, its wings unfurling slowly. The room shuddered with the force of its movement. The Varithian soldiers, still standing at the entrance, backed away in fear. They had never seen anything like this before, not from any of the creatures they had encountered in their long conquests. The dragon was not just a beast, it was a force of nature. Isla, please, Jorok pleaded, his voice strained. You don't know what you're doing. This creature, this dragon, is a weapon. It's dangerous. You can't. The dragon's voice interrupted him, and this time it wasn't just in Isla's mind. It was in the air around them, echoing through the room. I am not a weapon, Verithian. I am a guardian, and this child, this pure-hearted one, is the key to my freedom. The dragon's words caused the soldiers to flinch, as though the sheer weight of its presence was too much for them to handle. Jorok, his face pale, stepped back and raised his hand, signaling for the others to hold their ground. But even he seemed uncertain now. The dragon was too powerful, too ancient. There was no weapon in their arsenal that could stop it. Isla didn't even look at the soldiers. She was too focused on the dragon, on the connection she felt with it. She could feel its power rising, its energy flowing through the room like a storm ready to break. It was more than just physical strength. It was wisdom, ancient and untold, flowing through her, filling the empty spaces in her mind. The dragon's wings snapped open, their massive span casting a shadow over the room. It was slowly rising off the ground, its powerful limbs unfolding, lifting its body higher and higher. The room was shaking now, the walls cracking under the pressure of the dragon's awakening. Isla felt a warmth in her chest, like a seed of light growing brighter. It was as though the dragon's energy was merging with her own. She wasn't afraid. She couldn't be. This was the moment she had been drawn to, the moment when everything would change. As the dragon continued to rise, the Verithian soldiers could only watch in horror. They had never seen anything like this. For all their advanced technology, for all their weapons of destruction, they were powerless against the dragon, and even more so against the child who had somehow connected with it. Jorok turned to his soldiers, his voice shaking. We need to stop it. We can't let it leave. It will destroy everything. But Isla shook her head, her voice steady. No, Jorok, it's not a weapon. It's a guardian. It's here to protect, not destroy. The dragon's deep voice filled the room again, this time with a calm that seemed to soothe the air itself. The child speaks the truth. I was born to protect, not to harm. My power has been chained for too long, and now it is time to restore the balance that was lost. Isla reached out a hand as if to touch the dragon, but she didn't need to. The dragon's massive head lowered, and with a soft exhale it nudged her hand with its great snout. The warmth from its skin seeped into her, filling her with a sense of peace, of unity, as though they were no longer two separate beings but one. The soldiers stood in stunned silence. Jorok, his eyes wide, watched in disbelief as Isla and the dragon seemed to communicate without words. It was impossible. A human child no older than a small cub had unlocked the power of the deadliest creature in the universe. She had done what no one else had ever been able to do. She had awakened the dragon, and the dragon was not angry. It was not vengeful. It was not a weapon. It was a protector, and it had been waiting for Isla, waiting for someone pure-hearted enough to set it free. The ground shook again as the dragon's wings began to beat slowly, sending gusts of wind that sent dust and debris flying through the air. The very walls of the chamber groaned under the force. The dragon was rising higher, its power filling the room with an overwhelming energy. Jorok stepped forward, his voice trembling. Isla, please. You have to understand. This isn't just about the dragon. It's about the balance of power in the entire galaxy. If it escapes... But Isla turned to him, her eyes shining with determination. The galaxy has been out of balance for too long. You can't keep trying to control everything. The dragon is here to restore what's been lost. The dragon's voice boomed once again, stronger this time. She speaks the truth. The balance must be restored or all will fall. The soldiers backed away, understanding that they could do nothing now. The dragon's power was too great, and Isla, despite her size, was the key to unlocking it. And as the dragon began to stretch its wings to their full span, Isla stood tall, her heart racing but her spirit unwavering. She had done it. She had freed the dragon, and now nothing would ever be the same. The room was shaking now, the walls cracking under the force of the dragon's awakening. The sound of its wings flapping reverberated through the chamber like the roar of a storm, and the air hummed with raw, untamed power. Isla stood at the center, calm as ever. Her eyes locked onto the dragon as it began to rise fully into the air. The soldiers who had been standing at the entrance only moments before now stepped back, fear evident on their faces. They had never seen anything like this. They had thought they could control the dragon, use it as a weapon. But now it was clear. The dragon was no tool, no puppet to be controlled. It was a force of nature, and nothing in their arsenal could stop it. Jorok, still trembling from the overwhelming power he felt in the room, turned to face the soldiers. "We have to stop it," he said, his voice desperate. "The dragon cannot be allowed to roam free. It will destroy everything." His words, filled with fear, hung in the air, but none of the soldiers moved. They too were paralyzed by the presence of the dragon and Isla's unwavering courage. This was not something they had ever prepared for. The dragon wasn't just an ancient creature. It was an unstoppable force, and they had no way of containing it. The dragon's deep voice echoed through the chamber again, and this time it was louder, more commanding. "You cannot control me, Varethians. Your fear has bound me for too long, no more. The balance of the universe has been thrown off, and it is time for that balance to be restored." Isla watched the dragon as it spoke, feeling the deep power in its words. She wasn't afraid. She knew the dragon wasn't here to destroy for the sake of destruction. It was here to fix what had been broken, to restore the universe to its rightful balance. And she was the one who had helped free it. She turned to Jorok, her voice calm yet firm. "You have been using the dragon as a weapon for your own gain. It's time to stop. You cannot keep controlling everything. The universe has its own order. The dragon is here to protect that order." Jorok's face twisted with confusion and anger. "You don't understand, Isla," he spat. "The dragon was a weapon we controlled to maintain power. If we let it free, the galaxy will fall into chaos." "But the chaos has already begun," Isla replied, her voice steady. "The balance is already lost. It's only going to get worse unless you allow the dragon to restore it." Jorok stepped forward, his voice filled with panic. "You don't understand what you're doing. You can't let it go. You can't let it destroy everything we've worked for." But Isla stood firm, her eyes not leaving his. She didn't need to explain. She knew the truth now. The dragon wasn't a weapon, it was a guardian, a protector, and the galaxy needed that protection. Suddenly the room trembled again, but this time the tremors were accompanied by a loud, booming sound from above. The entire structure was shaking, as if the very core of the planet was reacting to the dragon's awakening. The soldiers looked up, their eyes wide with panic. The ceiling above them began to crack open, revealing a bright, swirling light. The dragon's voice boomed again, shaking the walls. "The time for fear is over. The universe will be restored no matter what it takes." The light above them grew brighter, and in an instant the entire building began to fall apart. Stone and metal crumbled as the dragon's energy surged through the structure. The soldiers, their faces filled with terror, scrambled to escape, but there was nowhere to go. The ground cracked beneath their feet, and the building began to collapse. Jorok looked around, his mind racing. He knew they couldn't stop the dragon. Not now, not when it had this much power. His only hope was to contain it somehow. "Fall back," he shouted to the soldiers. "Retreat. We need to warn the Empire. The dragon is beyond control." But Isla didn't move. She stayed where she stood, watching the dragon with a sense of awe. She knew the truth now. The Varethians had never truly understood what the dragon was. They had only seen it as a tool. But now they would see it for what it truly was, a guardian of balance. As the last of the Varethian soldiers fled the room, Jorok stopped and looked back at Isla. His eyes were filled with confusion, anger, and fear. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice shaking. "The galaxy will never survive without control. If you let it go, everything will fall apart." Isla looked at him one last time, her face calm and determined. "The galaxy has already fallen apart, Jorok, you just don't see it yet." With that, she turned back to the dragon. The room was now fully in ruins, the walls crumbling around them, but Isla felt a sense of peace, of certainty. The dragon was here to restore balance, to bring back what had been lost, and she, in her own way, was part of that restoration. The dragon lowered its massive head again, its glowing eyes filled with gratitude and something else, something like understanding. "You have helped me. You have freed me, child, and for that, I will protect you. No harm will come to you as long as I live." Isla smiled softly, her heart filled with warmth. "I know," she whispered. "Thank you." The dragon spread its wings wide, and with one powerful beat it soared into the air, flying out of the broken building, leaving behind the ruins of the Varethian Empire. The light from its wings illuminated the sky, casting a radiant glow across the dark planet. Outside, the sky was alive with energy, the stars shining brighter than ever before. The balance was beginning to shift, and Isla could feel it. The dragon had awakened, and with its awakening, the universe would be restored. The Varethian Empire might have been broken, but there was hope now. Isla knew the dragon would protect the universe, that its power would bring about the change that was needed. The galaxy would heal, and balance would return. As the dragon disappeared into the distance, Isla stood alone in the rubble, but she didn't feel alone. She felt connected, not just to the dragon, but to everything. She had played her part in something far bigger than herself, something that would change the course of the galaxy forever. And she knew this was only the beginning. The Varethian Empire lay in ruins, its once great cities now nothing more than crumbling stone and dust. The ground was scarred, and the sky above was alive with the glow of the dragon's powerful wings, stretching across the heavens like the dawn of a new era. The very air around the planet seemed charged with energy, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Isla stood alone amidst the destruction. She had never imagined that something so massive could change in such a short time. Just days ago, she had been a child from Earth, sent on a diplomatic mission. Now she was something more, something connected to the dragon, to the balance of the universe. She had awakened the ancient guardian, and in doing so, she had changed the fate of an entire galaxy. The soldiers had fled, running in terror as the dragon rose to its full power. Yorick had been the last to leave, his face twisted with anger and confusion. But Isla had known the truth. The Varethians had never understood the dragon. They had used it, controlled it, and feared it. But now the dragon was free, and it would restore the balance that had been lost for so long. As Isla looked up, she could see the dragon circling above her, its massive wings beating with a power that seemed to shake the stars themselves. It was no longer a captive beast. It was a force of nature, alive, free, and powerful beyond measure. And it was hers to command. But Isla didn't feel the need to command it. The dragon was not a tool to be used, not a weapon to be wielded. It was a guardian, and it had its own purpose. Isla had been chosen to release it, but the rest of the journey was not hers to make. She had done what she needed to do, and now it was up to the dragon to restore the balance of the universe. The air around her crackled, and a soft voice echoed in her mind. "The time has come, child." Isla closed her eyes, feeling the deep connection between herself and the dragon. She had never understood it fully, but she knew that they were linked in some way. The dragon had chosen her, and she had answered its call. "The universe is out of balance," the dragon continued. "The corruption and greed that have spread across the stars must be corrected. The power you have freed will help restore what has been lost." Isla nodded, understanding now what she had to do. She had never thought of herself as special, but somehow she had played a key role in a cosmic plan. The dragon had awakened because it was time. Time for the universe to heal. Time for the broken balance to be restored. She looked up once more as the dragon circled above her, its wings glowing like burning stars. It was preparing to leave. Isla felt a pang of sadness. She had grown attached to the creature, to the quiet power that had filled her heart with hope. But she also knew that its mission was greater than any bond they had shared. The dragon had to go. The universe had to be fixed. The dragon spoke again, its voice deep and resonant. "I will restore the balance, child. But know this, the work is far from over. You have helped me awaken, but there are others who must be set free, others who must be given the chance to restore what was lost." Isla stood still, her heart heavy with the weight of the dragon's words. She didn't understand everything it had said, but she knew the truth in its voice. The universe had fallen into chaos, and there was more to be done. The dragon's journey was just beginning. The dragon's wings flapped once more, sending a powerful gust of wind through the ruins. And then with one final mighty beat, it soared into the sky, disappearing into the stars. Isla watched it go, feeling the pull of its power, the pull of a new beginning. For the first time in her life, Isla felt truly alone. But it wasn't a loneliness born of fear or sadness. It was the loneliness of someone who had done something great, something that had changed the course of history. She had helped set the dragon free, and now the universe would be different because of it. The world around her was silent, save for the distant rumble of the collapsing cities. The last of the Varethian soldiers had long since fled, leaving behind only the ruins of their once great empire. And Isla stood in the middle of it, a child who had done something that no one had thought possible. She had freed the dragon, and in doing so, she had brought hope to a galaxy on the brink of destruction. As the dust settled, Isla took a deep breath. The world was changing, but she didn't know what the future would hold. All she knew was that the dragon had awakened, and with it, the possibility for a new, brighter era. But there were still questions left unanswered. What would happen next? What role would Isla play in the new universe that was beginning to take shape? The balance was being restored, but there were still forces out there, forces that might try to disrupt it again. For now, Isla could only wait. But she knew deep in her heart that she had made a difference. She had helped the dragon find its freedom, and now the universe would heal. It was no longer a place of fear and corruption. It was a place of hope, of new beginnings. And Isla, the small human child from Earth, had been the one to make it all possible. She looked up at the sky, the stars now shining brighter than ever before. The dragon was out there somewhere working to restore the balance. And Isla knew that in the end the universe would be better for it. A new era had begun,